Let him know, Pierce.
No problem, I still got plan C. Ladies and gentlemen.
Woo! Oh, yes. Welcome back. It is the Plan C podcast. Great episode coming in. Definitely one of the more, I'll say, ranting. Maybe not ranting, but it got a little rambly. So if you like sort of open-ended conversations, just enjoy. Make sure you are liking, make sure you are subscribing, make sure you are following us on Instagram, following us on Twitter, following us all over the place. Do it. Putting new episodes out weekly, at least about football. Going to do some other non-football things soon. That's coming down the tube. Don't worry about it. Maybe don't even worry about it, but look forward to it, because, you know, that's always fun. Anyway, hope you're having a great day. This will come out on a Monday, so happy Monday. Hope the rest of the week is going to be great for you. You know, just keep going, y'all. Keep going. Keep going, and, you know, the sun will shine upon you, if you will. I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. Anyway, thanks again for listening. Make sure, again, you're liking, sharing, subscribing. We're on YouTube. We are on Spotify, Apple. We have an Instagram. We have a Twitter. Check us out, y'all. I don't know what I'm saying. Again, I'm going crazy. Anyway, great episode. Make sure you check it out. Keep your eyes out. And let's get it. And we are back. It is Monday, so we're going to talk about Sunday. Joined by AJ. AJ, what's going on, man?
What is going on, my guy?
Well, the Saints lost another winnable game in which the offense just really kind of just puked all over itself, specifically in the red zone. So, not feeling great, but I did bet against the Saints, and I was rewarded for such a thing. So, I'm going to follow that feeling.
I guess that's smart. That's smart. So the Colts obviously lost a pretty rough game as well, division rival. That brings up a question. Quick question. Would you, when your team loses, would you rather be like a close game that you should have won, or would you rather get blown out?
Honestly, close game. I'm close game every time. Blowouts are depressing.
I think I'd rather get blown out. So like the Colts just lost by 17 to Jacksonville. If it would have been a close game all season, I'd be looking at it like, damn, we should be 5-1 right now instead of 3-3. You know, I would go back to those close games and be like, I think those piss me off a little bit more.
That's fair, but I would rather see my team fight than turn over. You know.
Okay.
Speaking of turning over, the refs have really been turning over those flags as of late. I can think of at least two situations yesterday where flags came in, or maybe they didn't come in situations where they should or shouldn't. Thinking the Browns game, thinking the Bills game last night. What's your experience with the refs been like this season?
So this year, it's been pretty awful, and I think it's been put on the spotlight pretty bad, right? Because prior to this week, there have been two back-to-back games. I'm talking about the Chiefs games, where the Chiefs have gotten the calls have gone 100% their way. And I know a lot of people chalk it up to being like the NFL just trying to please the Swifties, but the Chiefs have had some lucky calls, and not even lucky. I'm not even gonna say lucky because I don't think that's categorizing it correctly. It's been pretty shit. And yesterday, man, the games I was watching were pretty shitty as well.
Mm.
So you have a couple specific instances. I'm curious to hear because I got more than a couple.
Yeah. So just background. I I decided to sin, and I put $1 and $2 parlays across the board, and I built it on the bedrock of Miami money line parlayed with San Francisco money line, and then that was kind of the crux leading to all the other parlays. So I didn't lose a ton of money because again it's $1 and $2 parlays, but towards the end of the San Francisco game, there's a really bullshit defenseless receiver hit
Yes.
that was on a 3rd and 10, and he didn't hit him in the head. He like pulled back as much as he could, and it was one of those where it looked so much worse live. Like when I saw it live, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, not great. But then when you see the replay, even at full speed at a different angle, you're like, "Oh wow, that was just not to say it was dramatic, but you know, it looked a lot worse than it actually was."
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
No, so I'm right there with you. I was watching the game with my pops last night. He's a huge 49ers fan. And so obviously, like you said, huge 3rd and 10. They throw the ball to Elijah Moore and Deshaun Gibson. Real time, even on the first couple of replays, I was like, no, he clearly hit his head. He went for the head, defenseless receiver, all that jazz, trying to stick up for them. But they kept showing the replay, and I mean, yes, Elijah Moore's head drops a little bit, but he makes full on contact with his chest, shoulder area, does not hit his head.
Yeah.
You know, that ball was popping out. That ball was not even going to be catched regardless of the
No.
hit, right? Elijah Moore was bracing for the hit initially. Elijah Moore's a smaller guy, all things considered, right? He's one of those. I don't know how tall he is actually. He's probably 5'11", 5'10". Maybe not. I don't know. But he's a smaller guy, right? He was already jumping up in the air. That little window, that little box that the defenders have room to hit, it's tiny
He's
as fuck.
5'10".
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Regardless, though, he did not hit it. It set the Browns up. They were able to
And
kind of
I
take
mean,
the
once
lead at
that
that point.
happened, you just kind of knew. You
Yeah.
just kind of it was one of those where the Browns had the momentum, and then they it seems like they lose it, but then and it's a 3rd and 10 where like you think, oh, we fucking got him, and then suddenly you don't got him.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, 3rd and 10, there's 2 minutes, 30 seconds left, somewhere around there. They're at the 50-yard line. They don't, that ball's dropped. They don't call that flag. They're going to punt the ball back to San Fran. San
Yeah,
Fran can likely, they
burn the
can't, I mean,
timeouts.
yeah, they'd give very, very little time back to Cleveland if Cleveland can stop them, which they probably would have because their defense was stopping them all game.
Yeah,
But
their
they would have probably
defense
had,
crazy.
they would have had much less time to work with. They would have had to start all over again. It would have been a huge change. Cleveland is playing with a practice squad quarterback. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it makes a big difference when they ended up getting 15 yards. They got the ball. They kicked the field goal with a minute 40 left. And once again, San Fran couldn't do anything with it. So San Fran lost. So that call you can directly say affected the outcome of that game, which is not what it should be. Even the announcers at the time were questioning the call.
yeah.
And that
What
game
what
was just riddled with shit calls.
I didn't I did not watch that game completely because I was watching my dear Aints lose in Houston.
Yeah,
So yeah, what?
there's a couple things that stick out specifically. One of them was a PJ Walker fumble. He was coming around. They called it dead. Honestly, if I recall correctly, Nick Bosa picked the ball up, could have walked it into the touchdown, but they blew it dead initially. They reviewed it, clearly a fumble. The ball was coming out clear as day. And they called it an incomplete pass somehow. Horrible call on that. There was a Christian McCaffrey face armed and face mask on. In all honesty, Zadarius Smith, and they called the face mask on Zadarius Smith. They ended up correcting it, but it took them close to 5 minutes for them to
Oh
fix
my
that
god.
call. They spotted the ball. They brought out the chains, called it short when it was clearly, if they'd have just broken out a damn card and put that in there, they would have called it a first down.
Mm.
So, that game alone was pretty rough. But all day, all day.
Yeah, the other one I was thinking about specifically was so the Giants are driving against the Bills, need a touchdown. There is 0 time left on the clock. They throw, Darren Waller gets dragged, makes a play that I don't understand how it's not just taught at every single fucking level. The thing where you can sort of tell where the ball is going to be off, but you're like, well, if I just literally run in to this fucking defensive back, it is going to get called, like the contact is going to be there, and it's going to just look so much worse live. They're going to throw the flag, can't review it, blah blah blah. And then so you have your untimed down, and they throw it up, and like there's fucking the defenders draped all over him grabbing him, but they don't call that one.
So back-to-back
so
PIs by Buffalo.
yeah,
Clearly, the first one gets called, which was I thought the first instance to give them that untimed down at the 1 yard line or whatever it was, that one was less egregious than the second one by Taron
completely
Johnson.
agree. If anything, the first one was like defensive holding, in my opinion. I mean,
Yes.
what do I know?
Yes.
But it seemed closer to holding than PI.
Well, I think the reasoning they said was because the ball was out by the time the contact was made.
Mm.
And it's like by a split second, but regardless, they would have gotten the extra throw, which was more important. But I mean, that game ended on question marks. That game ended with the announcers, with Chris Collinsworth going through, and they're replaying from every different shot, showing how it was clear as day pass interference.
Yeah,
Right.
clear as
Taron
day.
Johnson is literally tugging at his jersey, right at the collarbone, right at the neck of the jersey, which that automatically is typically PI alone. But not only that, but him looping around Darren Waller's left arm to pull the jersey, couldn't get the arm up.
Yeah.
Now, could Darren Waller have maybe made a better attempt, more of a stronger attempt at it? Sure. I think sometimes receivers play it, they lean into it more to kind of sell more so the fact that they were interfered. But, regardless, he's tugging the jersey. Taron Johnson never once turns around to try to locate the ball, right? That's part of it.
Yeah.
You have to be making a play for the ball. He never once turns around. And it just sucks because, that game was pretty rough. The game was pretty bad. But for it to end,
it was drunk. That game was so
Yes.
drunk. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was a rough game. But for it to end on back-to-back pass interference calls by the defense, but one of them, the last one doesn't get called, it's rough. And to go back even further at halftime, I don't know how you feel about it, but when, Tyrod audibles to a run to Saquon and they don't get it and they run out of time, there's a Bills defender clearly laying on top of Saquon and the ball, like not getting up. And I've seen that called so many times where it's a delay of game. It could have potentially should have been a delay of game on Buffalo for not getting up quick enough, and they would have, the Giants likely would have kicked the field goal there. Like multiple times where these no calls are, affecting games. That's the biggest issue in my opinion. And like, just leaves such a bad taste in your mouth when the games end like that. When they're higher profile games too, right?
It's pretty rough.
It's hard to watch as a fan, and it's even more difficult to watch because They're not gonna do anything. If they didn't do shit when Nickel Roby Coleman
Oh
took out who did he take out? Was it Brandon Cooks?
no, it was no. Cooks has
Oh,
been
it
traded by
was
that point. It was Tommy Lee
the little
Lewis.
guy. Yes, yes. If they didn't call it on that in the NFC Championship game, I mean, if they didn't make any significant changes at that point, none of these calls are really gonna get what's gonna happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, nothing.
And so it's frustrating because like I know they don't want to make more of these calls reviewable or challengeable or whatnot because it just slows down the game so much more. But I mean, there's no accountability for these refs. It's just,
It,
it's
I was
frustrating.
I was having this conversation with my dad last night. I was saying it feels like all the half decent refs just went into television.
Yeah,
And now we're dealing with just not good refs.
no, it's. I don't know what you do because hey, look, I get it. That stuff could be very very difficult to see in real time. But these calls, no calls to win the games, I think are my biggest issue.
Yeah.
Right, within the 2 minutes, within under 2 minutes of halftime or at the end of the game, there's got to be something to be done because you don't want games ending like that. Because then look at now, that's all people are talking about, thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's our fucking A block.
It's
Just
really sucks, man. It's deflating.
yeah, no. It is because you never know when it's gonna strike. But then it strikes and it sucks. And you're like, ow, that shit hurted. Um
Yeah.
real quick, just on the Giants. Is this the worst team in football?
No, I mean they're pretty bad, but their defense, with how well their defense played last night, um, I'd give them a little bit more leniency. And right, their offensive line was one of the biggest issues. Probably the worst unit in the NFL. And they looked moderately decent against the Bills defense, who was getting Von Miller back. Right, they
Yeah.
held up a little bit better. Is that because Tyrod's a little bit more slippery than Daniel Jones? I don't think
Mm.
so because they're both mobile quarterbacks. I mean, how big of a boost is signing Justin Pugh, bringing back a familiar guy, a former Pro Bowler for the Giants? Like
Yeah.
he said it himself, in his announcement. I don't know if you saw it. When they do the player announcements at the beginning of the game, he said Justin Pugh straight off the couch, which is
I
true,
I did
you
see
know.
that. Yeah, my
And not
dad,
only,
my dad and I had a laugh about that.
yeah, I mean it's true though. He wasn't with anybody. They signed him, within the last few weeks. Came in, played guard, had to kick out to tackle, and he held up. So I don't know what it is, man. It baffles me sometimes how these units in the NFL can vary so much from week to week. But I still don't think I would call them the worst team in the NFL. I really don't.
That's fair.
I think they're pretty bad. I will say that. But worst team, no. I hold what I said last week. I still think that the Patriots are the worst team in the NFL.
All right. Speaking of the Patriots, just across the board, it seems like bad coaching is really also apparent this season. It seems like poor refing, and poor coaching are two really heavy themes of this season. Whether it's my silly team who can't score in the red zone with Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Chris
Chris
Olave,
Olave,
Rashid
Taysom Hill.
Shaheed, Taysom Hill. We can keep going. Kendrick Miller is like he's half decent. Like, I mean, not to be a dick, but Jimmy Graham, Foster Moreau, these are people who have shown that they can score touchdowns, even though they're not in their prime. Even down to like the Bears. I think the Broncos have some coaching malpractice going on. It just feels like for me, there's such a divide right now in in coaching. And I think sort of the biggest indicator of that is like, where were you? Did you coach under Mike Shanahan or Andy Reid? Yes. Okay, you are probably going to do well. You know. And then the other one is like, oh, you didn't coach under them? Did you coach under Bill Belichick? You did? Oh, sorry, pal. Oh, did you coach under Sean Payton and your name is not Dan Campbell? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, bad news, pal. Because up and down the line, when you look at Reed's coaching tree and Mike Shanahan's coaching tree, it's a little insane. The amount of current head coaches, that hail from these trees: John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, Doug Peterson, Todd Bowles, Ron Rivera. It goes on. Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Arthur Smith, Mike McDaniel, Robert Saleh, Sean McVay, Zach Taylor. It kind of breaks my brain, because how have GMs not seen this and been like, well, why hire anyone else? It's insane to me. These guys, and their offense is like work. I don't understand how these owners and GMs have millions and millions of dollars at their disposal, and everyone's not doing it. Like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, look how much has failed in the past, though. I think it if you kind of look at it, there's a trend, right? The most popular, most successful, or most active coaching trees they're all offensive trees, offensive guys.
Yeah.
So look at the past. I mean, historically, Bill Belichick, probably the best coach of all time, one of, right? Seen as, look at his coaching tree. It's pretty rough. A lot of the defensive guys have dropped off pretty significantly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a special teams guy, right? Flores, Joe Judge, Bill O'Brien, Matt Patricia, Romeo Crennel.
Yeah.
Well, Nick Saban is successful in other ways.
But Nick Saban was not successful in the NFL.
Exactly. I'm forgetting somebody. But regardless, right? That's old school. I mean, you're talking about new school.
I mean, Mangini,
Eric Mangini, that's what I was thinking of. But no, like you said, like Sean McVay, I mean, that's all new school, younger guys. All but one of them are offensive guys. And it's kind of makes you wonder, like, yeah, why aren't we doing this more? I mean, I think it seems like we've been doing it much more, right? I think
I complain because the stupid ass Saints picked the wrong coaching assistant under Sean Payton.
I mean, yeah.
I know the years didn't quite match up, but God damn it! Like,
should have kept.
Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell was in the building.
Oh yeah.
Dan Campbell was in the building.
I think that kind of goes back to it. I mean, there's not very many successful defensive head coaches in the NFL right now. There's a few. Sean McDermott, probably the biggest one, off the top of my head at least. But there's not a ton, right? And then that also goes back to it, like these rehired NFL coaches. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when we were talking about, the most successful head coaches from this last hiring cycle were probably the newer ones. DeMeco Ryans, Shane Steichen.
Dare we say Rich Gannon? Even though they got their ass kicked yesterday.
But it's yeah, you're right. I mean, these rehired coaches, Dennis Allen, did not look great with the Raiders a couple years ago. It was a questionable hire.
I'm pretty sure he is the worst winning percentage, like after a certain amount of games in the history of the NFL. Does Dennis Allen?
Oh, jeez. But he was handpicked. It's weird, these coaching trees. I mean, when you kind of look at the way it branches out, like Andy Reid has a bunch of guys, but Andy Reid came from this person, and then that person came. Like, where do we? I mean, almost
The Mike
every coach can
Holmgren
be
tree,
connected
and then
back.
it's the Bill Walsh tree. So yeah,
Exactly. They can all kind of be connected back to one another, right? But I mean, obviously, the biggest, the most active one currently is, I mean, numbers wise, is it Sean McVay or is it Andy Reid? I guess it'd be
I'm
Andy
pretty
Reid
sure it'd be
still.
Mike Shanahan if you want to like really
If
get
you're gonna go that far
granular.
back, I guess that's true, right? Although all three of those coaches were in Washington at the same time, right?
Yeah,
McVay, who was it? It was McVay, Kyle Shanahan,
and LaFleur.
and Matt LaFleur. Yeah.
Yeah,
And who did they
and
go with instead of him? They went with Gruden,
oh
with Jay
jeez,
Gruden.
Jay Gruden. Yeah, when Mike Shanahan was run out of town. What's Mike Shanahan doing right now?
Dude,
Mike,
he's looking old. I saw he was somewhere in the media not that long ago, man. He aged fast. It's kind of sad.
damn.
It's kind of sad when you see these guys that like haven't popped up anywhere in a long time. It's sad to see, man.
Yeah, that was like when I saw Tim Duncan had dreadlocks. I was like,
Yeah,
whoa.
that was kind of cool though. No, it's yeah. Go look him up. I just looked up the picture. It's pretty sad to see. I mean, he's already been out of the NFL for years, right?
Yes,
He's I mean,
10
his
years now?
Washington. Yeah, he ended with RG3. So
Yeah,
think about that. He was already one of the older coaches when he was in the NFL. So no,
yeah.
it's interesting to think of. And right, you look at all like the other potential hires for next year, the top candidates that weren't hired this year.
Oh, I mean, Eric
They all.
Bieniemy he has to get hired.
You mentioned that last year. Are you impressed? I know he wanted to leave on his own to kind of show he could do his own thing, but are you impressed enough with what Washington's done this year?
He's doing it with Sam Howell. Hell yeah, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I think of is obviously Ben Johnson, right from the Lions.
Oh,
He
with the
had seemed like he
Lions,
almost had a
yeah.
couple jobs. I know he interviewed with the Indianapolis Colts. That's who I would. He was one of my top candidates. But he wanted to
Wait, not
stay. I
Jeff
mean,
Saturday?
I love Jeff Saturday. What's that guy up to? I don't. He's not back on ESPN, is he?
I don't know. He's not
I
coaching
would have
anymore,
rocked.
right?
I would have rocked with him, dude. But but I mean, other than him, you got Ben Johnson. Dan Quinn's probably going to get some.
Oh,
I,
oh, jeez. I honestly, I think it it would not surprise me if, the Lions like make it really far and Ben Johnson is just like, no, fuck it, we're running it back. Like it,
well, that's kind of what he did last year. He could have had a
yeah,
job, but I think he pulled out to stay because
yeah.
he was confident,
Which
right?
I honestly just makes you is very impressive.
Yeah. Do you think the 49ers produce any more coaches? Do you see Steve Wilkes getting another shot?
I definitely man, it's so weird because Steve Wilkes and that Arizona season just like it's really
Mhm.
just a nasty nasty mark, but they were also tanking. And then you look at last year what he did with the Panthers and how he kind of like revitalized them and they went 500 down the stretch with not a great team or not any great quarterbacks. And it kind of makes you think like, oh, damn, just Steve Wilkes. Um,
Yeah, he got done a little dirty twice already, but
yeah,
yeah, I'm not huge on giving coaches just 1 year to work with. I think there's no way in hell a team that can
yeah,
get it
you
together
can't,
and you can't get it done in a year.
yeah, um, yeah. So just to get back on sort of my point, it's again, how has the league not just completely adopted this? it's a little mind melting with just the Saints have had the same offensive coordinator, I think, since 2006. I think Pete Carmichael has been OC. Um, and this is his second season without Sean Payton. And I know that Derek Carr is not the best quarterback, but they're also not putting him in positions to play well. And honestly, I mean, I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but man, they are, people talk about spinning fucking gold from wheat or whatever. They are spinning like tin from wheat. They're spinning like tin from gold. It's crazy. It's just it. And I know this team has problems. That the offensive line is not where we thought it would be, and we've had some a little bit of quarterback deficiency, but it still is really annoying that we'll run like one or two shallow crossing routes for a Chris Olave game. Or like we'll start the game by using a lot of motion, the thing that the best teams in the NFL are doing with their fast players. And then we just stop. We start the game throwing the ball to the middle of the field, but then we stop. Oh my God. It really feels like the Saints coaching is like bottom 5 in the NFL right now. I don't know how it looks from an outside perspective, but it's just like it does not feel great.
From an outside perspective, and I think I recall saying something about this a while ago. I don't personally see what that Saints offensive identity really is trying to be.
Exactly.
I mean, Jamal Williams, bless his soul, I thought he was going to be fantastic. He still could be. We raved about how great of a signing that was before the season. Very disappointing in the first couple years in relief of Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara's come back. I mean, they're running him quite a bit the last couple weeks, not super productively. Right, he's had 41 carries in the last 2 weeks alone.
But he looks good is the crazy thing.
He does look good, but that offensive line is not getting a great push. Do you contribute that to our defense is stacking the box because they know outside of Chris Olave, like there's not a consistent receiving threat? I mean,
I think it's because our offensive line just is not at the standard it needs to be. I think Eric McCoy is playing fine. Cesar Ruiz is playing fine. He had to play right tackle, but I think Ryan Ramczyk is having a just not a good season, and he's a usual All-Pro, so that's tough when you rely on him. And then you have the left side of the line, which that left guard position has always been a mess since Larry Warford has left. And left tackle, we spent a first-round pick that we traded a first-round pick that turned into Jalen Carter to draft Trevor Penning. And, I really want to be patient with Trevor Penning, but it's
six penalties, 4 sacks allowed. He's allowed the 5th most sacks in the NFL. Not playing fantastic. But he missed a lot of his rookie season, right?
Yeah, so this is his rookie season, so to speak.
And like you said, he's not really getting much help from him to the left side. It's
and he's being targeted. He's being targeted. Like the Texans were just throwing Will Anderson at him. And they were throwing a bunch of other players who I should know their names because they kicked our ass. So I apologize, other Houston Texans front seven. I'm gonna traumatize. I'm a little not traumatized, but I'm gonna try and forget that one. But yeah, they kicked his ass, and teams know they can kick our ass. And the problem is that even if they have a bad quarterback, if we go up against a half decent line, we're pretty cooked.
Well, here's my problem. Here's my problem with the
Yeah.
Saints as an outsider. And it sounds like you might be similar. That offensive identity, that team identity, is still stuck in the Sean Payton mold. Right? He took over.
Yeah.
He's been coaching that team since 2006. Like you said, even when he left, he pretty much handpicked Dennis Allen to be his guy. Offensive side of the things, you said Pete Carmichael has been with the team, been there since 2006. He's been there since 2006, but he's only been offensive coordinator since 2009.
Oh,
Before that,
my fault.
before that, it was Doug Marrone. He was with the team since 2006.
Lol.
He's back with the team as the offensive line coach. Right? He left. He got his head coaching stint with the Jags, which was pretty bad. But he's back. So like you're interchanging these guys. You've had
Pretty
the
sure he went
same
to
guys in there
Syracuse for
for
a little bit too.
Doug Marrone.
I think so.
He
Maybe.
was, yeah, he was their head coach. He left there, was your guys' head coach, was the Bills' head coach, had a pretty rough year. And then
Yeah.
he went with Jacksonville. Was not bad. Went with Alabama, and now he's back with you guys. But it's like, for the last, 17 years, your offensive identity has been the same guys working in there,
Yeah. No,
right? It's
seriously.
just, and yes, in that time, you produced a Super Bowl and a few NFC Championship appearances, a lot of
And I
playoff
think that's the problem.
appearances. You think they're living in that still?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
1000%.
I think that's got to change. I think you need to get new blood in there. Like the NFL's constantly changing, man.
I
The Saints are living in their own coaching tree right now.
I honestly think that the roster, maybe outside one or two changes to the offensive line, is very good because our defense is awesome and we can kick ass when we rise to the occasion, but we just don't. And I think that's so much down to being prepared coaching wise. Dennis Allen can coach the shit out of a defense, but I don't think he can coach a football team all that well. That's that's the last I'll say on it. I love the Saints. I love Dennis Allen, but I just don't think it's the right move going forward to have him on the team next season. Like, please bring in Eric Bieniemy. Please bring in Ben Johnson. Bring in fucking Harbaugh.
You got to bring somebody in who brings in their own staff. I think it's
Yeah,
it's time to kind
1000%.
of shake things up a bit.
Yeah, no, 1000%. I do still think that Mickey Loomis is a good GM though.
Agreed.
So I don't think the front office has to change. I just think coaching has to change. Yeah, but on my damn Saints, they were one of the teams this weekend who lost to an underdog. The Saints was probably a little more predictable than the 49ers losing or
The Eagles.
Losing or even the Falcons losing because the Falcons were favored. Yeah. So what do you think? Is this just one of those weirdo weeks where Vegas just makes a ton of money, or what's your thought on this?
Yeah, so no, I don't think so. I mean, we're consistently seeing this week to week with a lot of these underdogs. It's like you said, there's four teams who were technically underdogs last week or this week who lost or who won it, excuse me. Washington over Atlanta, Atlanta was favored by 1.5. Even New Orleans over losing to Houston. New Orleans was favored 2.5, but so those aren't, yes, technically they're underdogs, but those are very, very close games technically, right? Odds wise. But the Eagles and the San Fran ones, those ones were pretty big. San Fran was favored 9.5 over Cleveland, and the Eagles were favored 6.5 over the Jets. But none of those games surprised me. I take that back. That San Fran game was a huge surprise. But
Yeah,
I think it
especially
really
without
just,
Deshaun Watson. I was like,
yeah,
in my head, I
yeah.
was like, that's easy money. Ha. Jokes.
It never
Jokes
is.
on me.
No
Jokes on
such
me.
thing. No,
The
I was
football gods
watching,
slapped me.
as they should, as they should. No, it's it's interesting. I saw something. I was watching a podcast where they were kind of pinpointing. They went week to week, like the talk of the town, the teams maybe that are not necessarily favored, but the teams that are getting so much praise week, for their performance the week prior, have come out and lose. Every week it's happened, right? Whoever's at being
That's
talked
so
about,
true.
it's
Miami,
happened every week in multiple
San
places.
Francisco.
Yes, Miami dropped 70, lost. Detroit beat Kansas City week 1, lost. Week 2, Lamar and the Ravens popped off and then lost the next week to the Colts. So like every single week it's happened. And so nothing surprises me at this point. There even looked
Yeah,
like for a
that's
second
fair.
like
Yeah,
Miami could have had a struggled game last week, you
they
know?
were down 14-0, and everyone was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah, exactly. It's like Buffalo could have lost last week. So I think the NFL is at a pretty interesting point where there's very few gimmies from week to week, right? There's always in the past been some teams that you could like write off. But at the very least, there's been very few teams that have been write-offs, where they're at least gonna put up a good game. There's a few exceptions, Denver being one of them. New England's getting to that damn point now too.
Yeah, I
But
sorry.
no, I love it. It's fun. It's
I
been awesome.
I agree. But that makes me think of a question. Do you think the NFL would ever go to 34 teams?
Mm, I don't see an expansion happening anytime soon.
Mm.
And if they do, you already know it's gonna be something. It's gonna unfortunately probably be some international teams,
Oh yeah,
right?
you probably go like
London.
London, Toronto, or something like that, or Mexico City.
I would be so in favor of reshuffling the divisions. I think that the current outline for the divisions does not make any sense whatsoever geographically.
Mm.
Um, you know, there's a good little breakdown I've seen. Um, even breaking down like shifting NFC to AFC, AFC to NFC. It's just geographically wise, like with how many teams are in California right now, how many teams are in Florida. They could redo the divisions so much better. So like
And
I'll give
yeah,
you a couple. I'll give you an example. Like a new division should consist of Seattle, San Fran, Oakland, and the Rams. Excuse me, Oakland, Las Vegas, and the
Vegas.
Rams.
Yeah.
Because distance wise, it could cut it down so much. Put all those teams, put all three teams plus like Carolina in a division, right? Put all
All the
these
Florida
all these
teams, yeah.
Texas, yeah, yeah. Put like the all these Southern teams like the Saints and the Falcons and the Titans and the Texans in a division together.
Mm.
All these Midwest teams, Denver, Arizona.
Kansas City,
You could
yeah.
put one of those teams. So I would be
I
so
can
all
I
for it.
can
I think
see
it's
I can
desperately
see
needed.
I can see how you can fix that up. Um
I think it's
yeah,
needed big time.
it is a little silly to me. Um just the Seattle one just ooh, there's so much travel involved with that. And that's why I don't know if London will ever be feasible. You know?
So I saw something because I didn't realize this was a thing. So whoever plays in London, they get a choice of who they want their opponent to be that following week. Right? They could either choose to have their bye week the following week after their London game, or they could choose which of their available opponents they want to face. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
kind of tells it kind of tells you a lot that Jacksonville came off a 2 week stretch in London and would rather play the Colts than take a bye week, right? And they were
Yeah.
right, but you know, I mean, being out there for 2 weeks, you get a little bit adjusted to it, but that travel is got to be. I just don't see how it's
That's why I think
any team would
Mexico
want to do that
City is more on the list um
in London.
than London.
I guess that's true. Travel wise would be much better, but that London market's pretty fantastic.
If they put a team in London, it would have the biggest fan base.
Did you see
Because
the reports? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, just having followed soccer or football, if you will, those fans are rabid. And when you gather them in one place, like say for the, English national team, it's the fan base is massive. And again, there's just it would be, I don't think we would be prepared for how insane that fan base would be. That fan base would also fucking travel. People don't realize that, but English people take that shit so seriously and will like travel to other games, specifically if it's easy, like at an LA game. Anyway, please, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, I was gonna ask if you saw the reports that came out yesterday that
I did
the
not.
NFL is considering hosting a Super Bowl in London. They've been supposedly pondering the idea. I guess Goodell came out and said that it's not impossible. It's something that's been discussed. Do you think that could ever happen, and should that ever happen?
I mean, in terms of having a global game, it probably will happen at some point.
But how do you make that happen
I
time-wise?
it is tough because you're like, oh, do you send them over like 2 weeks in advance, just for that buy? I don't know how you would do it. You would need the
Well, I'm saying like
NFL.
broadcast
Oh
wise.
yeah,
How would that
because
happen?
you couldn't have it start at 6, because if it starts at 6 p.m., then what? That's 11 for them, and
That'd
you
be like
couldn't have a
3
game.
p.m. Yeah, no. If
Yeah,
so,
and
right
then
now they host their games. It's like 2:30 local time. For you, those games there, what, 11:30 in the morning?
9:30.
Yeah. 9:30 your time. There's 7:30 my time. Shit. What am I? I'm tripping. And then West Coast, that's 5 o'clock in the morning. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you completely, because I'm thinking about also like when the Premier League has later games, or the Champions League has later games, and those start at like 4 Eastern, right? Or 3 Eastern. So could you get away with starting a Super Bowl at noon West Coast? Because that would sort of be the biggest risk, especially if you have a Western team going out there, because those markets aren't going to fuck with that, because it's going to be hard. Well, I don't know how hard it would be to pack a bar in LA, if like, the Chargers were in a Super Bowl in London.
Well, I
I don't
mean,
know that much.
horrible example because the
Yeah,
Chargers, the
that's what
fan
I'm trying
base
to
in
say
LA.
though. That's what I'm trying to say though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just kind of takes out the event aspect of it.
Yeah, and then
Because if it's happening in the middle of the day, I just don't see it really working as well.
because then it's over, and then it's like 4 p.m. and everyone on Pacific time is like, now what?
Well, I guess it eliminates. Everybody's been asking for that day after the Super Bowl should be considered a national holiday, right?
Well,
So that kind of gets rid of that.
I think honestly, I think what happens there is they just go to they just add another game. I bet they
Yeah,
eventually do that, and then they just have President's Day, and then bada bing, bada boom.
I just don't see an international Super Bowl happening
Oh,
anytime remotely soon.
I
No, I don't see it
I
happening.
think I think it would take a lot of doing, but again, I think a place like Mexico City would be a lot more feasible. Um, yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, have the past few um Mexico games kind of been a little bit of a shit show?
Uh,
I recall they were trying to do. There was going to be a
I remember
preseason
there
game
was a
where they got
turf
canceled.
issue. There was a turf issue one time, but that's something that you can fix.
I know. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but anyway. Uh, yeah. What do we got for Monday Night predictions?
Oof, tonight's gonna be a good game, man. It's gonna tell us a lot about both teams. I really think so. So what are the odds currently sitting at?
So I am looking at the CBS odds. I can look at FanDuel if you want, but CBS has Chargers plus 2.5,
Yeah.
and on FanDuel has Chargers plus 1.5. So
So, yeah, that's what the score is looking like. So, man, I would take that all day. I think
you take the
in
Chargers in that situation.
I'm taking the Chargers regardless of what the money or what the betting info is currently sitting at. They're likely getting Joey Bosa back, right? He's questionable. I think I'm hoping we finally see a good game from Quentin Johnston. I think, I mean, this Cowboys defense has looked pretty rough since losing Trevor Diggs. So, right, they just got walked by the 49ers. They did beat the Patriots, but I'm not really counting that. I could see, I could see Justin Herbert kind of popping off, and they're getting Austin Eckler back. He should have a full workload. I think this is the game where the Chargers kind of reestablish themselves because they had high expectations coming into the year. Sitting at 2-2, they're coming off a bye week. They come off their back-to-back wins against, I mean, they beat the Vikings and the Raiders. They've had close games every game of the season. They lost by 2 opening week, they lost by 3 second week, and then they've barely won by 4 and won by a touchdown. So their point differential is pretty narrow, but I finally see this being the week where they really kind of establish themselves.
You have stronger belief in Brandon Staley than I do. But
No, hey, don't
that
put
being
words in my
said,
mouth.
I also would take that. Plus 1.5, easy all day. I am a Mike McCarthy hater. Um,
Preach.
and man, you wanted to just again just on coaching, you wanted to have another just Jerry Jones yes man after 10 years of Jason Garrett. Boy, oh boy, did they hire the right man for the job then. Just enjoying that sweet, sweet mediocrity, which is so weird because McCarthy McCarthy technically comes from the same tree that Andy Reid does from the Mike Holmgren tree,
Yep, the Mike Holmgren.
and
Different era, so.
that's just funny to me. But anyway, I yeah, no, I think the Chargers are bound for a good game. It's weird that they have so many just like really good defensive players, but their defenses look terrible. Um, just very
Very
bizarre.
bad, man. Losing ever since they lost um Trayvon Diggs. Did I say Trevor Diggs earlier?
No, you said Trevor Diggs, but I was gonna let it slide.
I did. I just caught that. Ever since they lost Trayvon Diggs, this
No,
defense has looked.
I'm talking about the Chargers defense.
Oh, got you.
I
Okay.
mean, yeah, the Cowboys defenses look shaky, but that's I mean to be expected once you lose a
I
guy
mean,
like
after
Trevor.
the way they started the season, everyone
Yeah,
was crowning him as the best defense in the league. It's going to be a good game tonight. I'm glad we're both on the
same
same
wavelength.
wavelengths
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I did something silly with my friend. I'll just share this little anecdote, and then we can wrap up. I Saturday night I went out to celebrate a friend's engagement, and at one point in the night I had already placed a bunch of bets. Not when I had been drinking. I sinned prior to placing the bet to drinking. But then I turned to my friend Jake and I'm like, I was like, hey, let's like bet on a game together, like just so we can like, text each other back and forth, to have a little fun. And our dumbasses took 49ers 9.5. Oof. Not that I put a ton of money on it. I put fucking $4 on it, but it was still just like that was a bet that Debo gets hurt and you're like, uh-oh. McCaffrey gets hurt and you're like, uh-oh.
We talked about it last week. I mentioned the Brock Purdy hate, and you were like, "Is there Brock Purdy hate?" Did you see any of it yesterday after all those injuries?
I have been seeing like if you just look up Brock Purdy on Twitter,
Yes.
there's a bunch of pretty like the memes are pretty great. I'm not out on Brock Purdy by any means. I think any quarterback would struggle in that situation. And also like y'all, come on. He was the 7th round rookie. Like, come on.
But if you think but going into yesterday's game, he was betting odds favorite to win MVP.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I swear to God. Swear to God, he bumped up.
I thought it was Jalen.
No.
Wow. Definitely not
wasn't even third.
Definitely not
after last week it changed it. But yes, he was going into the game, he was betting odds favorite.
That's wow.
So I'm starting to get why people are being so loud, but still, I still believe him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How are you feeling about Jordan Love? Just real quick before we bounce. I've been meaning to ask.
I saw people talking about it. I still think he's looked good. He's looked okay. That team around him is ass. AJ Dillon's not been good. Aaron Jones has missed some time. Christian Watson's missed some time. He has Watson, a rookie, in Reed, and he's got Romeo Doubs as his main targets.
Yeah.
And he's got, who does he have at tight end? Luke Musgraves? Like, he has some, I think he's got one of the worst supporting casts around him right now. He has no veterans receiving around him.
What?
David Bakhtiari, is that dude ever going to fucking play again? You know what I mean? Like,
oh, he's done for the season.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And he's like played so little in the last 3 years.
What happened to Tunyon?
He's in Chicago.
Oh, Tunyon went to Chicago? Oh, I didn't know that.
You couldn't tell by how little he's played this year. Yeah, he wears number 18, I think. He wears an interesting number like that. So I think he's been okay, but man, when you look at it, he really has not. He's got no veteran. He doesn't have that like veteran premier guy he can kind of lean on. And it's really been looking very good for him. So
yeah,
I mean, I hope he doesn't get. I hope they don't shut him down. We'll see. It's gonna be interesting.
Oh yeah, don't shut down Anthony Richardson either, just for my fantasy season. Just kidding. You can shut him down for the good of the league. I understand.
Good of the league.
Anyway. Yeah, seriously. You got anything else before we get out of here?
That's it, man. That's it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been the Play and See podcast. AJ, thanks for joining. Appreciate you sitting through my coaching tree rant. I'd been stewing on it for like 24 hours now. Just because I was like, D'Amico Ryan's like, oh, why did we try and get this guy? Like, just being very edgy about my coaching situation. But it's okay. Hopefully we make the right decision. Hell, I would take Ruggiero Evero, the guy who was DC of Denver, and he went to
Carolina.
I thought he went to Atlanta.
No, he's with Carolina.
I would still take him. He seems like such a good coach.
Well, I mean, you couldn't tell with how Carolina's doing this year, but with how poorly Denver's defense was without him.
Yeah,
that gives him better.
100%. 100%. Anyway, make sure you check out the Plancy Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. We're all over the place. Check us out. that's it for me. Thank you, AJ, again.
Of course.
Y'all keep an eye out on episodes coming in the future, and have a great day.
Have a good one.
Peace.